Hey, you know what time it is? Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! Hi, happy people. It's story time with Chris. We're back. So, let me explain a couple of things. So, everybody within the sound of my voice, let me explain a couple of things. So, I did take a little bit of a break after reading The Halloween Tree. Let me turn the music down just a tad. There we go, so I'm not shouting. I had to take a bit of a break because as someone who has been trained as a singer, went to an excellent performing arts high school, Pebblebrook High School, where I was a drama major, vocal performance minor. I ended up dropping my minor my senior year because I had to take personal fitness and health, but I still count that because I was trained by some incredibly wonderful people. When one has to perform in a highly animated fashion when it comes to narration, when it comes to giving life to certain characters, when I do read, sometimes it hurts my vocal cords with certain voices. And Mr. Mouseshroud, which is one of the main characters in Ray Bradbury's The Halloween Tree, has a very scraggly voice. Yes, help him, Ralph. Like, he has a very scraggly demeanor. So I have to really reach to the lower register of my vocal cords and really bring that out. And I do that myself because I think it is more authentic when the voice actor is able to accomplish that feat on their own without any, warping of sound or auto-tuning or anything like that. So what typically happens, and that was a very long read because I started it on October Halloween Eve, which was the 30th, and then I split it in two parts on Halloween Day, because I had worked that day, I came home, was able to rest for a little bit, but then I had a manager's meeting, and then after that, I had to go to the gym, and then get ready for trick-or-treats, which we gave out some great candy. Me and my neighbors gave out some great candy, made sure people were cool and safe, kids were very polite, and had some really cool, inventive costumes at that. But yes, so whenever I have these really long narrations for story time, I have to give my vocal cords a break. It's called going on vocal rest, which anybody that works within the industry of theater knows very well. Vocal rest is a period of time where you try to do your best not to talk as much, to saving your vocal strength for your actual performances and whatnot. So after I had read that book, I really didn't have a voice to really give you the grandeur and magic of what is Storytime with Chris, so I had to take a bit of a break. So, thank you for your patience, but just a couple of fun facts. So, males have vocal cords that are very long, and so females have vocal cords that are very thick and wide. You can shake your vocal cords. You can... Hi, Derek. Hi. Come on, legs. Yes. I love my friend. Love him so much. He's so silly. So as I was saying, so for those who are going to be watching this on YouTube, I typically go live and I'm reading comments. Love you too, sweetie. Thank you so very much. As I was saying, so with vocal cords, it is never a good option to drink cold water or ice water. What that does is it shrinks your vocal cords and it inhibits your personality and vocal capability when you do sing. It causes you to strain and not being able to hit certain notes or certain octaves because your vocal cords have shrunk. That's why it's always recommended to drink room temperature water or tea to be able to get to the length of octaves and range that you are capable of. So that's why a lot of the times when you see me do story time, I always have hot tea, preferably herbal. There are those times where I would have black tea, like my spice chai. I love chai. Chai is amazing. My yerba mate, my English breakfast. But mostly it's a lot of herbal tea. Herbal tea has no caffeine. Black tea has the equivalent of a cup of coffee when it comes to caffeine. Certain black teas have the equivalent of 2. Green tea has a lot of caffeine. So I'm not a huge caffeinated person. I don't really need that. So I try to stay away from that stuff. So that's why when I do take these long breaks, I do it to bring you the best of what I have to give, not just what I have to give at the time. So I do appreciate that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and begin. And we are back with Lloyd Alexander's The Book of Three. And like I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your leisurely time, downtime, in-between time, nap time, work time, however time you have to fill to enjoy this wonderful little program. And no, I don't do this for profit. This is a project that I do out of the love and passion I have for the world of literature. So sit back and relax, and no, I don't own the music that you are listening to in the background, which is a cover of, see, y'all, I'm terrible at this. This is why I need to have, like, I wonder if they can make, like, an automatic eyeglass cleaner. Like, that would be helpful. Hi, Jake. Hi. Because my glasses are always just spotty because I've been working and stuff, so I try to make sure that they're clean before I start. Okay, that's a lot better. Okay. All right. Chapter 14. The Black Lake. That night, Medwin prepared a feast for the travelers. The disorder left by the breakfasting bears had been cleared away. The cottage was snug and neat, though even smaller than Caerdalban. Tard could see that Medwin was indeed unused to entertaining human visitors, for his table was barely long enough to seat them all, and for chairs he had been obliged to make do with benches and milking stools. Medwin sat at the head of the table. The fawn had gone to sleep, but the wolves crouched at his feet and grinned happily. On the back of his chair perched a gigantic golden-plumed eagle, watching every movement with sharp, unblinking eyes. Fluder, though still apprehensive, did not allow his fear to affect his appetite. He ate enough for 3, without showing the least sign of becoming full, which is a clear example of somebody being incredibly greedy. I mean, if the food is there, by all means, eat it, but save some for later. All right. And also, for my fans who are familiar with The Hobbit, which we will get to read that story on this channel, by J.R.R. Tolkien, we will definitely read The Hobbit. Lord of the Rings is a bit too long for the younger kids, so we're gonna stick with The Hobbit. That's a easier read. And I know it backwards and forwards. Not to say I don't know Lord of the Rings that well, but Medwin reminds me of the character of Bjorn, who is a skin changer. He can change his skin, meaning he can shapeshift into anything, any animal, any person, any beast. And that's what Medwin reminds me of. He's very close to nature and animals, which is important, as you should. But when he asked for another portion of venison, Medwin gave a long chuckle and explained to the amazed Fluter it was not meat at all, but vegetables prepared according to his own recipe. So, an early example of what a vegan looks like.
Of course it is, Eilonwe told the bard. You wouldn't expect him to cook his guests, would you? That would be like asking someone to dinner and then roasting him. Really, I think bards are as muddled as assistant pig keepers. Neither one of you seems to think very clearly.
As much as he welcomed food and the chance to rest, Taran was silent through the meal, and continued so when he retired to his nest of straw. Until now, he had never imagined Henwin might not be alive. He had spoken again with Medwin, but the old man could give him no assurance. Wakeful, Taran left the briar and stood outside looking at the sky. In the clear air the stars were blue-white, closer than he had ever seen them. He tried to turn his thoughts from Henwin. Reaching Caerdathel was a task he had undertaken, and that in and of itself would be difficult enough. An owl passed overhead, silent as ashes. The shadow appearing noiselessly behind him was Medwin.
"Not asleep?" Medwin asked. "A restless night is no way to begin a journey."
It is a journey I am eager to end, Taran said. There are times when I fear I shall not see Caer Dallben again. It is not given to men to know the ends of their journeys, Medwin answered. It may be that you will never return to the place dearest to you, but how can that matter if what you must do is here and now? I think, said Taran longingly, that if I knew I were not to see my own home again, I would be happy to stay in this valley. Your heart is young and unformed, Medwin said. Yet if I read it well, you are one of the few I would welcome here. Indeed, you may stay if you choose. Surely you could entrust your task to your friends. No, said Taran after a long pause. I have taken it on myself through my own choice. If that is so, answered Medwin, then you can give it up through your own choice. From all over the valley, it seemed Taran there came voices urging him to remain. The hemlocks whispered of rest and peace. The lake spoke of sunlight lingering in its depths, the joy of otters at their games. He turned away. No, he said quickly, my decision was made long before this. Then, Medwin answered gently, so be it. He put a hand on Taran's brow. I grant you all that you will allow me to grant. A night's rest. Sleep well. Taran remembered nothing of returning to the briar or falling asleep, but he arose in the morning, sunlight refreshed and strengthened. Eilonwy and the bard had already finished their breakfast, and Taran was delighted to see what Gurgi had joined them. As Taran approached, Gurgi gave a yelp of joy and turned gleeful somersaults.
Oh, joy! He cried. Gurgi is ready for new walkings and stalkings. Oh, yes, and new seekings and peekings. Great lords have been kind to happy, jolly Gurgi.
Taran noticed Medwin had not only healed the creature's leg, he had also given him a bath and a good combing. Gurgi looked half as twiggy and leafy as usual. In addition, as he saddled Melangar, Taran found that Medwin had packed the saddlebags with food and included warm cloaks for all of them. The old man called the travelers around him and seated himself on the ground. The armies of the Horde King are by now a day's march ahead of you, he said. But if you follow the paths I shall reveal and move quickly, you may regain the time you have lost. It is even possible for you to reach Caer Dathel a day, perhaps two, before them. However, I warn you. The mountain ways are not easy. If you prefer, I shall set you on a path toward the valley of Ystrad once again. Then we would be following the Horned King, Taran said. That would be less chance of overtaking him, and much danger, too. Do not think the mountains are not dangerous, Medwin said, though it is a danger of a different sort. A flam thrives on danger, cried the bard. Let it be the mountains or the Horned King's hosts. I fear neither, not to any great extent, he added quickly. We shall risk the mountains, Taran said.
For once, Eilonwy interrupted, you've decided the right thing. The mountains certainly aren't going to throw spears at us, no matter how dangerous they are. I really think you're improving.
Listen carefully, then, Medwin ordered. As he spoke, his hands moved deftly in the soft earth before him, molding a tiny model of hills, which Taran found easier to follow than Fluter's map scratchings. When he finished, and the traveler's gear and weapons were secured on Melangar's back, Medwin led the group from the valley. As closely as Taran observed each step of the way, he knew the path to Medwin's valley would be lost to him as soon as the ancient man left. In a little while Medwin stopped. Your path now lies to the north, he said, and here we shall part. And you, Taran of Caer Dallben, whether you have chosen wisely, you will learn from your own heart. Perhaps we shall meet again, and you will tell me. Until then, farewell. Before Taran could turn and think, Medwin, the white-bearded man, disappeared, as if the hills had swallowed him, and the travelers stood by themselves on a rocky, wind-swept plateau. Well, said Fluter, hitching up the harp behind him, I somehow feel that if we meet any more wolves, they'll know we're friends of Medwin. The first day's march was less difficult than Taran had feared. This time he led the way, for the bard admitted after a number of harp strings had snapped that he had not been able to keep all Medwin's directions in his head. They climbed steadily until long after the sun had turned westward, and though the ground was rough and broken, the path Medwin had indicated lay clearly before them. Mountain streams whose water ran cold and clear made winding lines of sparkling silver as they danced down the slopes into the distant valley lands. The air was bracing, yet with a cold edge which made the travelers grateful for the cloaks Medwin had given them. At a long cleft protected from the wind, Taran signaled a halt. They had made excellent progress during the day, far more than he had expected, and he saw no reason to exhaust themselves by forcing a march during the night. Tethering Melangar to one of the studded trees that grew in the heights, the travelers made camp. Since there was no further danger from the cauldron born, and the hosts of the Horned King moved far below and to the west of the group, Taran deemed it safe to build a fire. Medwin's provisions needed no cooking, but the blaze warmed and cheered them. As the night shadows drifted from the peaks, Ilandwe lifted her golden sphere and set it up in the crevice of a faulted rock. Excuse me for yawning. Sorry, y'all. Gurgi, who had not uttered a single moan or groan during the part of the journey, perched on a boulder and began scratching himself luxuriously. I love that word. Luxurious comes from the word luxury, or luxurious, or luxuriously. So luxury is to describe wealth, loftiness, abundance. Somebody that is very rich, or rich in life, or rich in personality. Like, for example, a way to use luxuriously would be... Okay, perfect example. I lounged luxuriously on my mountain of books that I have yet to read, which is right over here. All those books that I have yet to read in my own time. I luxuriously lounged on my mountain of books. So, you can still feel luxurious and still have stuff needed to do. Alright, back to the story. Although, after Medwin's washing and combing, it was more than a habit than anything else, the bard, as lean as ever despite the huge amount he had eaten, repaired his harp strings.
You've been carrying that harp ever since I met you, Ilandwe said, and you've never once played it. That's like telling somebody you want to talk to them, but when they get ready to listen, you don't say anything.
You hardly expect me to go strumming out airs while those cauldron warriors were following us, Fluter said. Somehow, I didn't think it would be appropriate, but a flam is always obliging, so if you really care to hear me play, he added, looking both delighted and embarrassed. He cradled the instrument in one arm, and almost before his fingers touched the strings, a gentle melody, as beautiful as the curve of the harp itself, lifted like a voice singing without words. To Taran's ear, the melody had its own words, weaving a supple thread among the rising notes. Home, home, they sang, and beyond the words themselves, so fleeting he could not be quite sure of them, were the fields and orchards of Caerdalban. Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Caerdalban. The gold afternoons of autumn and the crisp winter mornings with pink sunlight on the snow. Then the harp fell silent. Fluter sat with his head bent close to the strings, a curious expression on his long face. Well, that was a surprise, said the bard at last. I had planned something a little more lively, the sort of thing my war leader always enjoys, to put us in a bold frame of mind, you understand. The truth of the matter is, he admitted with a slight tone of discouragement, I don't really know what's going to come out of it next. My fingers go along, but sometimes I think the harp plays of itself. Perhaps, Fluter continued, that's why Taliesin thought he was doing me a favor when he gave it to me. Because when I went up to the Council of Bards for my examination, I had an old pot one of the minstrels had left behind, and couldn't do more than pluck out a few chants. However, a flam never looks a gift horse in the mouth, or, in this case, I should say harp.
It was a sad tune, Ilanwe said, but the odd thing about it is you don't mind the sadness. It's like feeling better after you've had a good cry. It made me think of the sea again, though I haven't been there since I was a little girl.
At this, Tard snorted, but Ilanwe paid no attention to him.
The waves break against the cliffs and churn into foam, and farther out, as far as you can see, there are the white crests, the white horses of Lear, they call them, but they really only waves waiting their turn to roll in.
Strange, said the bard. Personally, I was thinking of my own castle. It's small and drafty, but I would like to see it again. A person can have enough wandering, you know. It made me think I might ever even settle down again and try to be a respectable sort of king. Caer Dallben is closer to my heart, Tard said. When I left, I never gave it too much thought. Now I think of it a great deal. Gurgi, who had been listening silently, set up a long howl.
Yes, soon great warriors will all be back in their halls, telling their tales with laughings and chafings. Then it will be the fearful forest again for poor Gurgi to put down his tender head in snoozings and snorings.
Gurgi, Tard said, I promise to bring you to Caer Dallben if I ever get there myself, and if you like it, and Dallben agrees, you can stay there as long as you want.
What joy! Gurgi cried. Honest, toiling Gurgi extends thanks and best wishes. Oh yes, fond, obedient Gurgi will work hard.
For now, obedient Gurgi had better sleep, Tard advised, and so should we all. Medwin has put us well on our way, and it can't take much longer. We'll start again at daybreak. During the night, however, a gale rose, and by morning a drenching rain beat into the cleft. Instead of slackening, the wind gained in force and screamed over the rocks. It beat like a fist against the travelers' shelter, then pried with searching fingers as if to seize and dash them into the valley. They set out nevertheless, holding their cloaks before their faces. To make matters worse, the path broke off entirely, and sheer cliffs loomed ahead of them. The rain stopped after the travelers had all been soaked to the skin, but now the rocks were slippery and treacherous. Even the sure-footed Mellingar stumbled once, and for a breathless moment Taran feared she would be lost. The mountain swung a half-circle round a lake, black and sullen below threatening clouds. Taran halted an outcropping of stone and pointed toward the hills at the far side of the lake. According to what Medwin told us, he said to the bard, we should make for that notch, all the way over there. But I see no purpose in following the mountains when we can cut almost straight across. The lakeshore is flat, at least, while here it's getting practically impossible to climb. Fluter rubbed his pointed nose. Even counting the time it would take us to go down and come up again, I think we should have saved several hours. Yes, I definitely believe it's worth trying.
Medwin didn't say a word about crossing valleys,
Ilanwe put in. He didn't say anything about cliffs like these, answered Taran. They seem nothing to him. He's lived here a long time. For us, it's something else again.
If you don't listen to what somebody tells you, Ilanwe remarked, it's like putting your fingers in your ears and jumping down a well. For an assistant gatekeeper who's done very little traveling, you suddenly know all about it.
Who found the way out of the burrow? Taran retorted. It's decided. We cross the valley. The descent was laborious. But once they had reached ground level, Taran felt all the more convinced they would save time. Holding Mellingar's bridle, he led the group along the narrow shore. The lake reached closely to the base of the hills, obliging Taran to splash through the shallows. The lake, he realized, was not black in reflection of the sky. The water itself was dark, flat, and as grim and heavy as iron. The bottom, too, was as treacherous as the rocks above. Despite his care, Taran lurched and nearly got a ducking. When he turned to warn the others, to his surprise, he saw Gurgi in water up to his waist and heading toward the center of the lake. Fluter and Ilanwe were also splashing farther and farther from land. Don't go through the water, Taran called. Keep to the shore. Wish we could, the bard shouted back, but we're stuck somehow. There's a terribly strong pull. A moment later, Taran understood what the bard meant. An unexpected swell knocked him off his feet, and even as he put out his hands to break his fall, the black lake sucked him down. Beside him, Melangar thrashed her legs and whinnied. The sky spun overhead. He was pulled along like a twig in a torrent. Eilonwy shot past him. He tried to regain his footing and catch her. It was too late. He skimmed and bobbed over the surface. The far shore would stop them. Taran thought, struggling to keep his head above the waves. A roar filled his ears. The middle of the lake was a whirlpool, clutching and flinging him to the depths. Black water closed over him, and he knew he was drowning. And that is where we are going to end for today. I will see you all next time. We will be back on Facebook on Wednesday. Tuesday we'll be on Instagram with the series of unfortunate events, The Bad Beginning. Thank you all so much for your patience. I love each and every one of you. Have a great night. Bye-bye now.